It's the human factor. Most dangerous part of it all, right? So to help mitigate this, well, there's a lot of things we put in place. There's a lot of rules, policies, procedures, tools, all kinds of stuff that's out there. And Jay Rarcy is from Continuum. He's one of our partners. He's going to talk about what some of these tools and things are that are out there, and also some of these deeper thoughts that you need to have. So great resource to ask questions with afterwards, and take advantage of it. Okay, Jay?
Thanks, appreciate it. Okay, let's make this interactive. You guys are probably tired of listening, right? So we're going to ask them a few questions. Why don't businesses, or why aren't you investing in security in your business right now? Budget? Yeah, people don't budget for security because for the most part, there is no return on investment. There's no competitive advantage. There's no efficiencies gained by it. All it is risk management. Why else?
Lack of knowledge of what's going to be most effective.
Yep, they have no idea what to do. Matter of fact, the IT teams don't even know what to do sometimes because IT is not security. We'll cover that here in a little bit. That's a great one. What else? Yeah, it slows us down. I mean, you guys know what multi-factor authentication is? You've heard it like 12 times already today. You guys know what it is? So your bank or LinkedIn probably require it now, where you type in a password and they send you a text and that you put that in the system. That's multi-factor, and multi-factor is based on one of three or two of three things. Something you know, like a password, something you have, like a phone or a PIN that gets texted to you, they've already proved you are who you say you are. And lastly is biometrics, a fingerprint or a retina scanner. It takes 2 out of 3 to meet that multi-factor requirement, but even that we can get around today. So a hacker that actually knows what they're doing, in a few minutes, when you click on that link in the email, they can now pick up all of your multi-factor activity and they can pretty much hijack your banking session or whatever else you're doing. So I didn't mean to scare you, but yes. What else? Any other reasons? Anything else you guys can think of?
Not seeing a need for it.
Yeah, a lot of businesses say, well, I'm too small. And we'll cover some of those today because that's certainly a great topic. The other one is that, and the last one is, they don't care about my data. I'm too small, and why do they care about me? And we'll cover why that's relevant today, because it's not that they care about your data. It's rare that they actually steal your data anymore. They want to encrypt it so you can't access it. And if you can't access your data, how important is your data then? And who cares about it then?
Is that ransom?
You do. Yeah, it's a ransomware, and a lot of the other attacks are doing similar style. They're just removing your ability to access the data. If you can't access it, all of a sudden it becomes kind of important. You can't deliver on production. You can't deliver your CPA services. You can't deliver banking services. Whatever your industry is, doesn't really matter. If you can't use it, now it matters. Okay, so I'm gonna back up a step. That video you guys watched before, Ndse actually gave these little pieces of plastic that are on your tables. Those are actually designed to tape on your laptop and cover your webcam. And you can open it when you need to use it, and you can close it when you're done. So if you're not sure what that little piece of plastic is, that's actually what it's designed for. All right, so let's run through some things. First off, we now know that cybercrime is larger than all other reported forms of organized crime combined. Okay? But we're not hearing about all of it. We hear about the big names, we don't hear about the small stuff. And that's key when we're talking about why this all matters and how it fits in. But I'm gonna take a step back for a second, I'm gonna go up a notch. Because most of you either have to make a decision as a business owner, or you gotta talk to your board of directors, your CEO, your presidents, and explain to them what the problem is. And the first problem is that there's a 0% unemployment rate in cybersecurity. Now, I'm telling you that because right now there's 1 million unfilled cybersecurity positions worldwide. There's not enough guys like me, like Tyler and everybody else who's here, that spend time helping defend. There's more attacks that we can defend against, and it's not getting better. By 2021, there'll be 3.5 million unfilled positions in cybersecurity. If you've got kids heading into college and not sure what to do, it's a really good place to be. Okay, for the next probably 4 to 5 years, we can't hire fast enough. Okay, so someone's going back to school, I would definitely look at some variation of cybersecurity. But we mentioned this early on, the big attacks, I mean, we're not Marriott, I'm not Target or Home Depot or these kinds of companies, right? Anybody here work for those companies before I pick on them? Okay, so let's talk about some of the big names that have been breached here recently. I won't go through all of them, but I want to touch a few of them and show you how the impact actually falls back and would match something that could happen in your business. So the first one I'm going to pick on is Target. Okay, they're an easy target, haha, sorry. So Target has just now recovered their stock value. And they were hacked, how many years ago was it? It's been a while, okay? They were the first major provider that got hit. Everybody said, I don't want to shop there anymore because of that. I'll go somewhere else. When you think about that, you may have been one of those people who even didn't know it. But Target got hacked, but it wasn't their fault. Which is going to sound kind of strange. They were breached because their HVAC provider was breached. It's their HVAC, the air conditioning and heating company. They were the ones that were breached. And they found on that network spreadsheets that showed all the access information for wireless networks to all the Target stores nationwide. And so in basic concept, the hackers sat in a parking lot and joined the wireless network and realized that the HVAC network was on the same network as the credit card transactions. And that's how the hack actually occurred. Now, Target got the black eye, right? The other ones we all heard about. Very few of us knew it was the HVAC company. How many of you are a small business or a smaller business who provide services to larger companies? Okay, I know we heard that before. It's an issue. We heard that in financial services, that they're being audited because their larger companies are being audited. Okay, if you're a defense contractor, if you're in financial services, if you're in healthcare, these are all places that we have to deal with today that are relevant because the smallest, weakest link can be the entry point into your network. I should go back, sorry. Equifax. Equifax was actually breached twice with the same attack. The difference was the first time it happened, the attackers weren't good enough to use the exploit to be able to gain and access the data. They came back like 4 months later, I think it was, and used the exact same exploit to break into exploit that screwed all of us. They got access to our social security numbers, our date of birth, our everything, right? And Equifax knew they had a problem, and it was a patching problem. They couldn't install the patches because the patches, if they were installed, would break their credit systems. And they had no way to mitigate the threat, no way to stop it from happening. And so while they were working to try to get the systems so they could patch them, they got hit again. That's how we all were all impacted. Okay? These are problems that we can solve ourselves because an unpatched machine at any size business is a liability. Marriott. Marriott's been in the paper and in the press and the paper quite a bit here lately, right? How many of you have stayed at a Marriott in the last few years? I do all the time. I'm either on the road educating and teaching people about cybersecurity, or I'm out actually solving incident response scenarios, being called in to help because it was too late. And when I saw the whole Marriott breach, I looked at it differently than what actually happened and how it happened, like the technical side of it. What I saw was really interesting. So we all know that the database that was breached was the Starwood guest database. It wasn't actually Marriott's original database with all of our stuff. It was Starwood, SPG. And the original intrusion happened in 2014. Okay, so stay with me now. We got a timeline here for a second. Marriott didn't buy Starwood until 2016. They bought the breach. Their mistake was in due diligence. When they bought that company, they didn't run security tests on the data to see if they had been compromised already. And in that process now, a couple of years later, when the hackers tried to go back and re-access the database, they figured out that bad things were going on. Of course, they announced it and they've come out and handled it. But they bought that hack that is causing them so much grief. And they paid a lot of money, like, I don't know, $13 billion. Okay? I'll give them credit. What I liked about how they've handled it so far, because reputation is everything, they've come out and said, we will pay to replace your passport. That's the most important piece of data that was actually acquired out of all there, out of that database. So knowing that they'll spend that kind of money, that's hundreds of millions of dollars they're going to spend to replace 360 million potential passports. I give them an A+ for how they're handling it. The fact that it happened kind of sucks. So why don't we hear about small businesses that have been breached? Yeah, that's right. It's not newsworthy. It might be in your local market. A local paper might pick it up and have some fun with it if they wanted to. And I'll show you a scenario of that. Anybody here been hit by a cyber attack of some sort in the last few years? Willing to raise their hand and admit to it? That's good. Because if we aren't talking about it, then we're going to keep saying it's just the big guys. But it's happening. I saw 3 hands in here. And they were like, T-Rex arms, but I saw them. I get it. It's really interesting. I'll go into a room full of IT teams, IT professionals from all over the country. I'll put 100 people in the room that I'll be educating on security and what they should be doing from a technical perspective. And I'll ask them, how many of you have had a client who's been hit by a cyber attack? 95% or more, the hands go up. And I'm like, okay, wait, stop. Hands up a little higher, guys. Everybody look around. This is a problem we're all facing, and no one's talking about it. Okay? And we're talking about the pieces that actually matter. So it's not newsworthy. It's embarrassing. That's why you get the T-Rex arms. Nobody really wants to say, hey, my company got hit, because from a reputation standpoint and the PR standpoint, it's probably pretty bad, right? No issues there. The legal ramifications, if you're in financial services, healthcare, any place where you have an obligation to report the breach is a big deal. And you should know this as business executives in your business. Privacy is the next big thing. If you heard the term GDPR coming out of the UK, that's the first real, measurable solution towards privacy. Australia is a year behind the UK, and they're just now enacting their version of GDPR. And California starts theirs January 1st of 2020. So 335 days from now, whatever the timeline is. And once California gets it, it's going to sweep across the whole country. You can't have privacy without security. It's all there is to it. You've got to have both to make it work. But the legal ramifications are huge when it comes to those kinds of things. So now let me give you some real life scenarios of what happens when your company is breached. I'm from Atlanta, so I've got data points from Atlanta. This happens to be a law firm down there, 140 users or so at the time that they were breached. They were broken into by a group called Xdetic out of Russia. A group, CrowdStrike, actually did the forensics to figure out how it happened. The attackers had been in the network for over 300 days before they launched the attack, the actual ransomware attack. And again, I'm not going to go into the technical side of it because I don't think anybody here really cares about that. But as business people, you should know a few things. First off, they had over 5 million files encrypted. They could not restore from backup. Their backups were corrupted. And so they had to pay the $25,000 ransom. That was just over 2 years ago. That was 28 Bitcoins. Today, it would have been about 6 times that amount if it was the same number of Bitcoins. The reason they couldn't restore from backup is because they were corrupted, but corrupted is kind of a loose term. How many of you know how to back up a system? You've ever used Carbonite or any tools to back up? So how it works is you install the software to back it up. Then you check the boxes and all the things you want to back up. So if it's your own computer, it's my documents, it's my pictures, my music, my desktop, my favorites, just things that you care about, right? So what the bad guys did, since they were in the network and no one noticed that they were there, is about 90 days before the attack occurred, before they launched the ransomware attack, they actually logged into the backup systems and they unchecked all the data folders. And all that was being backed up were the routine Windows files, the one that comes on the computer the day you open it up and turn it on. There's no data there, no value. The IT team that was helping them kept getting reports every day saying, our backups are successful. They're seeing green check boxes on all the servers. Everything is good. It wasn't. That's why you have to test your backups. And whether you use Ndse or somebody else, you want them to actually test your backups on a twice-a-month basis or more if you can handle it. Okay, there are some tools out there now that will actually do it for you daily through automation. Just do it, because no one noticed in this case the backups went from 12 terabytes of information to 2. And that's technical. It went from a cargo van full of data down to a Pinto. Okay, no one noticed. Those are things that matter and that your team should be looking at and paying attention to. So because of that, they were down for 2 weeks. So that they paid for the encryption key. They got it back from the hacker. They actually gave it to them, which actually happens more times than not. The problem was it took 39 hours per terabyte to decrypt. So you can encrypt really fast. The decrypt process takes longer. Okay? Law firm, called 100 attorneys running around who can't do anything. They can't send email. They can't enter time they can't look at contracts. They can't look at case information. They can't do anything. Okay? It was bad. And they did not have an incident response plan. They had a disaster recovery plan. If they had a fire, they were okay. But they were not prepared for a cyber attack, which is different than your typical disaster recovery plans we see today. Any questions on this one? The other thing that we see quite often, I mentioned this a little bit with Marriott, this is an orthopedic facility in the metro Atlanta area that was hit, and they didn't know that they were breached. They had no idea until the FBI walked in and unplugged their internet connection. Then sat down with the doctors and said, we have found 205,000 patient records for sale on the dark web with all the information, name, address, telephone numbers, email addresses, social security numbers, payment information, and what the symptoms were and what the treatment was. It was all there. Now, you've probably heard the term dark web a few times today already. You guys know what that is? Anybody not? It's okay. It's all right to say you don't. Okay. So we look at it from a technical perspective. There's 3 parts to the internet. There's the part that we see every day. Think of it like an iceberg. That 10% of the iceberg that's above water is what we all use every day. It's where you find Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, your banking sites, all those kinds of things. The next section is called the deep web. And that's where we try to protect the data. So your bank puts your banking information at that level. Your company intranet resides there. A lot of government activity happens in that space. It's protected, it's VPNs, there's encryption, it's usually reasonably safe. Then there's the dark web, which is the very bottom feeders. And it's exactly that. It's where you can buy almost anything you want to buy, from weapons to child porn to anything else you can possibly imagine that's not good, that the typical moral person would consider bad, you can buy there. So when we talk about the dark web, that's where when I steal, as an attacker, your data, I can go turn it into cash or bitcoins down in the dark web. I sell those things off. So that's where this data was for sale when the FBI found it, because thank goodness they're actually looking out for us, and they're looking for those kinds of things to be able to help businesses avoid the pain and suffering. The problem was this ortho facility did not have an incident response plan that included PR and media. So within an hour of the FBI walking into their building, the press was right behind it. They knew something was going on. All these people show up and people, employees call them. It was bad. And so they send a practice manager out who had no experience talking to the press. And the practice manager went out there and said all these things that they had taken notes on. We were hacked. Your information was stolen. There's nothing we can do about it. You should probably go change your passwords and notify your insurance companies. Okay? Took no ownership of it. You're laughing, right? But it's sad in a funny kind of way, because you can learn from this, and that's why I'm telling you this. Okay? Part of this is a very simple plan, because the press skewered them for the next 3 days. If all you do when this starts is come out and when you have to talk to the press and say, look, we're still investigating the cause and what was accessed, and until we have completed that investigation, we don't have any additional information to share. I think I learned that on Law and Order like 15 years ago, right? It isn't that hard. And hold the company line. Tell your staff about it. Look, guys, you cannot go calling all your friends. We've got company-wide non-disclosure issues. This is confidential information until we deliver a final report. Okay, and those things are really important when these things happen. But businesses don't think about it because we're not talking about it, because it doesn't happen to small businesses, right? It does. Over 60% of the attacks are happening to small businesses every single day. All right. So now I need to help you for a few minutes have the conversation either with yourselves, if you're the decision maker in your business, or how to talk to your management and your executive team about security. And I'm not going to talk technology. I'm actually going to have a little bit of fun here, and we're going to talk about a couple of things that matter. Actually, I'm going to take one step up for a second. There's 3 parts to data that's really important. And this is a place where businesses really fail to understand this. The data owner are the ones that have the liability if the company is breached and data is stolen. It's usually the CEO, the president, the CFO, and the board of directors, because they have the responsibility for risk management, and they didn't do a good job of it if they were breached, okay? The data owners always blame the information technology guys. The IT guys always get blamed for hacks. Matter of fact, when a business has been hacked, odds are the IT team is gone within 90 days, and they've been replaced, if not sooner. But the IT team really are just custodians. Their job is just to execute on what the data owners ask them to do. The data owner has the responsibility. And then as small businesses, even medium-sized businesses, a lot of us don't have an information security team. That InfoSec team, as we call them, their job is actually to help teach the board about the risk associated with an attack and help make sure that the IT team is delivering things securely. If you don't have that piece in your business, then you're not getting the whole story, and the business owners and the executives that make the decisions aren't making informed decisions. And that's where we have this problem. Like in your packets, you've got this graphic. It's called 15 Ways to Protect Your Business from a cyber attack. But these are things we're going to talk about in a little bit that at a very high level, your board should understand. They don't have to know how it fits, but they need to know what the gaps are in the business so that we can help solve those kinds of problems. So here's how we're gonna have the conversation, and I need you guys to play along for a minute with me. So you guys all live somewhere, got a house, an apartment, condo, somewhere where you live, right? What's in your house that you care about protecting? Anybody? Family. What was that, dog?
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree.
I included that in family.
What else?
Pictures.
Valuables, pictures, family memorabilia, money. And I'm not talking about the money that you put under your mattress, but your financial records, those kinds of things, those probably are important to you. Electronics, maybe. Some people more than others. Like I tell my wife, if they steal the couch, I don't care. If they go for my laptop, we're gonna fight, okay? Because I care about that, it's very important to me. And so we can quickly identify what's important to us in our house, right? Well, if we can do that, tell me then how you protect your house.
Locks, alarms.
Yep. Dogs. The order is pretty consistent here too. I got lucky this time. The police department, hopefully, right? Let's see, you've got neighborhood watch. Everybody's got that nosy neighbor that will call you if there's someone creeping around the neighborhood. Now it's an email you get, hey, there's somebody in a blue Chevy sitting outside my house. Anybody know who it is? These things happen. Insurance, right? Things that we all put in place to help protect against an attack. Doorbell camera. I've got that Ring doorbell camera. It's really creepy, but it's really cool. I can see who's at my front door, right? Baseball bat. Depends on where you live in the country. Sometimes it's something different. Yard signs saying you've got an alarm system. It's certainly a mechanism to help keep the bad guys out. Motion sensor, fence. These are all things we do, right? Not everybody has every one of those, but these are things that we see consistently and hear from groups across the country that we have. Well, let's talk for 1 second about how someone breaks into your house. They have a very standard operating procedure. They wait till dark. They wait till they see no one in the house, and lights are out, and it's early enough. And then they go and they check and see the door's unlocked. Check the windows, check the back door, check the car door. And if it's all locked, they either can force their way in, or they can go down to the next house, and then one after that, and one after that, so they find one. It's a numbers game. On the internet, they can check the doors on your network and the locks on your network from anywhere in the world anonymously, as often as they want. Matter of fact, most businesses don't realize that people are scanning their network about 40 times an hour to see if you left any doors open. okay? So when we look at these, the first column there are all things that we do to protect our house, right? We're trying to be preventative. I want to stop them before they come in. The next ones are things we do to detect that there's something going on, right? The last ones are things that we can do to respond to an attack. Is that easy? We all get that concept? Of those three columns, protection, detection, and response, which are the most important? Protection? If that was the case, people wouldn't be breaking into our houses and wouldn't be breaking into our networks. Because they can get through. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this whole industry. We wouldn't be here talking about cybersecurity, would we? Anybody else? Yeah, it's from a cyber perspective, it's detection. And I mentioned before, they're in the network 200 plus days before we even know that they're there. If we don't detect them sooner, we can't avoid the pain that comes with it. And I can't respond until I've actually identified a threat. This model right here came from a guy named David Stelzel, who's also a CISSP and trains businesses on security. But this is the easiest way to explain to your decision makers why security is important, and then figure out where you should invest. What's really interesting, and we heard this earlier on in the presentation about the NIST presentation, what NIST is. So first off, we identified what was important, right? What's in your house that you care about that we have to protect? And then lastly, we put in a recovery mechanism. So if all else fails, we have a way to recover. And that is the actual NIST security framework in English. And that NIST framework is what all compliance, not all, but most compliance is based around. Okay? If you get those 5 things reasonably right, you're going to be in good shape. I also will tell you that you shouldn't throw money at security just for the sake of throwing money at security. You should never spend more on security than you're actually going to lose, right? And don't overpay for it. And what you really want to do is figure out what to protect. The identify phase is actually the most important thing that you can do. Now, I mentioned that there's 15 ways to protect your business from a cyber attack. The very bottom option, by the way, is the 15th one is cyber insurance. You should be talking to your insurance agents tomorrow. Have them review your cyber capability. What do you have? Because when you talk about risk mitigation, if you can transfer risk and the expense of it over to the insurance company, that's certainly the place where you should start. And it's not expensive. Cyber coverages are very, very inexpensive. Then what you should do is sit down with Ndse or your IT team and have an honest conversation around the other 14 boxes. Check the boxes on things that you have in place that are working, circle the ones you don't, and then make a good business decision on what the effect will be if I deploy those. But you can't make a good informed decision until you do a security assessment. You should actually do the risk assessment, go back, identify all of your important data, your important assets you care about, and then look at the protections you have in place to defend those items. Look, if they break into your business and they take out your accounting system, that's going to impact everybody in the room, right? But if they come in and then they just encrypt 3-year-old tax records, yeah, it sucks, but it's okay. I can keep doing business because of that. If your email's down, if your telephones are down, the whole world knows, at least the ones you care about, your customers and your employees. So go back and do their risk assessment so that you can actually figure out what to protect, and then your teams can figure out how to protect them. And then that's when you should spend money on security. So where should we start? A risk assessment. Well, one more time, where should we start? Okay, it's good, because it's really important. You can't manage what you haven't measured. So with that, I'm Jay Ryerson from Continuum Security. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate that. There's a lot of fear in that, thanks. Everybody feel better? Feel a little more scared? Yeah, a lot of good information that Jay brings. Just so you guys understand, we rely on people like Jay who do specialize in all this stuff to feed us the information and best practices that are out there. When I say us, I mean those of us that are responsible for trying to protect infrastructures, MSPs, MSSPs, managed security service providers, for that sense. It's not an easy thing to do. There's so many different ways to look at that, right? Security assessments are necessary. Your risk assessments are absolutely necessary. It's a guideline. As Jay puts it, it's a starting point for all of us. But those are the things that also need to be run regularly. Don't think of it as just as the initial, right? You should be running at every so often to make sure that you're filling those holes and that we don't have a spot or a gaping section in the infrastructure that we forgot about, or that we're not thinking about because we get focused on moving forward with the business. And we've put this in place and we've asked for these things and we've done our assessments and we've followed our guideline and then we forget about it, a year down the road. Those things need to happen on a regular basis, but we've got to make sure that we're always investing in making those items on the top of mind, right? Backups were one of the things that are extremely important. More important than anything else that's happening, obviously. It's got to be recoverable, but it's not always going to be 100% recoverable, right? There are, as Jay said, times that if they get something that's inside the infrastructure that ends up encrypted, do you need to invest the time and the expense in bringing that back? Or is it everything and we've got to bring all of it back? I had a customer a couple years ago up in, I think it was Illinois they were up in, and they got hit with social engineering. One of their accountants answered the phone, and the guy on the other end said they were with Sage Accounting, and that there was a request from the company that they needed assistance in correcting something within the database, and they were just trying to follow up on this ticket to figure out what's going on. And the user that answered the phone says, "Oh, well, yeah, it's been screwy, so there's probably something going on. What can I do to help you with that?" They said, "Well, I just need to get access in there to take a look at the database. Let me see what I can do." And sure enough, they went to a link they were provided, and this so-so on the other end of the line ended up accessed remotely into the machine. Nobody knew any different. Is there anything to prevent that from happening? All the tools and security measures and everything in the world. They threw everything at this to try to protect them. That was a human factor, right? They said, "Yeah, but come on in. Here's my machine, have at it." And they walked away with the entire financial database. Split, disappeared. Come to find out after the investigation that was done internally for that company, there was no request that was ever put into Sage asking for help with this. And we have no idea why you allowed somebody on the other end of the phone remote into your machine. Verification, right? Check on this. Yeah, cringe. Makes you sick to your stomach almost, doesn't it? But we do it, human factor, right? Ransomware is out there. Is there any way to protect against it 100%? No. We do absolutely the best we can do to try to prevent it, but that means we've got to plug every hole. Can you plug every hole? No. There's always water somewhere in your house coming in from something, right? So you have to do everything you can from every entry point like we talked about before, right? There are a number of entry points that come in. So we have to try to find every way to prevent these people from coming in, whether it be monitoring everything better, whether it be backing things up 100 different ways, whether it be teaching our people different procedures to prevent things and putting different steps in to say, please do not talk to anyone without calling IT first and say, is it okay if we do this before I send them our database?